down with OTC? OTC. Are you down with OTC? Are you down with OTC? OTC. Are you down with OTC? Down with OTC. Are you down with OTC?
Yo, who is down with OTC? That's what we want to know. Good morning. It is a fine morning down here as well because it's nice and cool out, and we like that. We don't like the heat so much. But welcome to the HODL review here exclusively on the chain. This is Jeff. You can probably see my name right over there. We are going to be talking about Ripple XRP, 1.9 billion users. And the U.S. seems to be left out of the equation right now as we speak, as more exchanges like Kraken are deciding that, hey, you know what? We are going to temporarily put a pause on anybody in the U.S. having the capability to buy or sell XRP right now. Seems to be one of the few holdouts in this whole conversation. We are going to see on the 19th, Coinbase is actually putting a pause on buys and sells of XRP. So today we are going to be dedicating the conversation to the global expansion of Ripple and XRP in the banking space, ODL, RippleNet. I think it's an important conversation to have because we are seeing, regardless of what's going on with the SEC lawsuit, regardless of what's going on in the US, they're still seeing global expansion in other places, and Asia is one of those huge places that we're seeing some expansion. Asia accounts for, if you exclude China and India, you still have about 1.9 billion people outreach, and we're going to dig into that. We're going to look at what that looks like from from that perspective, and also look at what it means for India as well. So stay tuned. I highly recommend grab your coffee because when we go through this whirlwind, you're going to want some espresso. This morning is Segfredo Day. It often is Segfredo Day. It's one of our favorites. We also go with the Death Wish. And actually, I'm getting ready to order a few new ones that I've seen out there that come from the same group as Death Wish. And they have a good one called Valhalla. So anyhow, it came out perfect today. All right, let's go. Let's get started. All right, we are back. So, just want to say what is up to everybody. Welcome from all over the world. We've got Gökhan from Istanbul. Welcome. Good to see you here. We've got Joni all the way in from St. Petersburg, Florida. DNI from Thailand. And see that JK was the first one in, and he brought up an interesting opening statement. So the lawsuit doesn't ask for a declarative judgment. So what makes people think XRP will get one? And I think it is what is the follow up here? Let's see. Is it declaration by default if Brad and Chris are found not guilty? And I believe that that's probably what they're going to find in the outcome. As they go through that, they have to show that they didn't sell an unregistered security. And I think in the outcome of this, as they start digging through, and it's interesting because one of the articles that I did bring up, and maybe that's where we might even jump into to start with, because there was really an interesting article that popped up on Yahoo of all places, that was released yesterday, how Ripple plans to defend SEC charges over the XRP token. So I think that might even be a place to start before we start diving into what's going on internationally. But if you guys want to give a shout out, we have people that log in from all over the world. We love to see where people are coming from. So if you guys want to shout that out, that would be awesome. I see that we have D Cube 42 all the way in from Bavaria. He's walking out there in the snow and listening to the stream. So here, I took a nice walk this morning at 6 a.m. and it was probably about 65. So for all those that are in the winter, in the winter and in the snow and all that, we're feeling for you. So let's see, what do we have here? We've got Ducky is on, Ducky McScrooge, down with the OTC. So, all right, let's see. We've got Jose coming in from New York, which is awesome. And I know New York is having some issues and has had some issues. New York is definitely one of those problematic states in the U.S. where their regulations are extreme. Their banking regulations, their licensing regulations, and it takes a lot. A lot of times New York is the last place that you see something open. So even if you look at the mobile app Robinhood for a stock exchange, even New York was one of the last places that allowed it Prosper. If you've ever invested in the P2P lending on Prosper, also one of the last places they were able to come back to was New York. So let's see, we got Mario from Las Vegas. Holy cow, it's probably 5 a.m. out in Las Vegas right now. So great to see you here. We got Skeeter from Michigan, Kelly from Central Florida. And it's awesome. It's amazing how many people we have logging in from Michigan, because Chip spent some time up there in the Detroit area. I've spent time up there in the Detroit area, and DNI, who's on here as well, spent time up there in the Detroit area. So it's always great to see people that have been in Michigan, and otherwise. So look at that, DNI, born and raised in Detroit. So there you go. Crypto Brown from Palm Bay, Florida. We got a lot of Floridians here as well. I Kinda Pawn is also in Florida. 40s, you must be up north. So northern Florida. We got Ohio. That's awesome. Estonia. And I've heard a lot of great things about Estonia. A buddy of mine lives over in Estonia. He was from Turkey, then moved to Estonia, and he keeps telling me that it's the place to visit. And so I've visited a lot of great places, and Estonia is now on my list of places to go. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one. Netherlands, another great place. We've got Tampa, Florida in here. Danny, Cynthia, both in Tampa. Got FX in Arcadia. Got Jeff over here in Phoenix, Arizona. So that's great. Where we got Boynton Beach. Scott's in Boynton Beach. Probably came down from up north, and he's like, holy cow, it's 60 degrees and people are wearing sweaters. What's wrong with these people? So, and then we've got XRP Hollywood in NC, North Carolina. So, yeah, look at this, all over the place. Nick over in Australia. So this is great too. When we look at, you kind of drill down to see where people are from, and we've got, number one, the US market, UK market, Australia, and then we get a lot of people from all over the world. So we've got Janice from Stuttgart, which is great. So, all right, let's dig in. Let's dig into this. We can go through that forever. I'm going to sit here and drink coffee and just see where everybody's from, and we'll change the whole topic of the show to shout outs to where people are from. How about that? That'll be the new name instead of on the chain, Chip. All right, so I thought this was interesting. I'm going to pull this article up because I think this is a great place to start. Then we're going to segue over to what's going on over in Asia, because Asia is very, very important for the crypto space. I like, we're going to focus on what's going on right now with Ripple and XRP in Asia, but Asia in general, important for the crypto space. This lawsuit, SEC v. Ripple, is also very important for the crypto space and the blockchain space. So we're going to dig down into it a lot more. We've done a lot so far. Tomorrow night on the roundtable, we have John Deaton coming on. He's the attorney that is suing the SEC. I couldn't get that one out. I'm like, XRP. No, so we got John Deaton, who's suing the SEC on behalf of the XRP community. So definitely tune in tomorrow night. That one's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You don't want to miss that one. We had John Deaton on before, and we're going to dig into a lot of the different things that are happening. So, so I think you guys are going to want to hear what more he has to say, as we go through this. So we've got UK in the house, and there's a lot of interesting, positives, negatives going on over in the UK. One of the positives we saw that come out in the UK is that they saw that XRP was not a security, but what's a little more, I guess, a little concerning here, because this came out a couple days ago. CoinGeek actually put something out that the UK is banning digital currency deposits. And I did hear some rumblings of that certain banks are making it more difficult to actually move money from a digital asset exchange back into fiat currency. Now, one thing that the OCC did here in the US, Brian Brooks, they actually changed that. So they have put a stipulation in place that banks cannot block certain industries based on the industry. So, so if you think about, like, in the US, we have, a big firearms industry, or you have the crypto exchange industry, or you have whatever. There's, specific industries that banks are trying to say, look, they want to squish. They want to squash the that industry, and so they won't transact with them, which makes it extremely difficult if you want to get, a credit card processing, or if you want to move it back into a bank for fiat purposes. Then they made it difficult. So in the UK, we're starting to see some rumblings of that. And here it says here, digital currency speculators in the UK are reportedly facing increasing difficulties accessing their gains, with the country's major banks shutting down deposits from crypto exchanges. One of the big ones is HSBC, that has put specific measures in place that prevents the transfer from a digital asset exchange over to their accounts. So this is, it states here, it's preventing speculators from cashing out on any gains. So now consider this, and this is the struggle. This is something that we've talked a lot about on the show. That, it's a battle between the old guard and the new guard. The new guard is the fintech. The new guard are the cryptocurrency exchanges. And one of the things that we're trying to identify is that blurring of the lines when the crypto exchange becomes a bank, or the bank becomes a crypto exchange. Now, globally, one of the things that we're seeing from crypto asset exchanges is that we're also seeing the rollout of credit cards. And so you might take a step back and say, hey, credit cards, why would I want to spend my digital assets now, when, if you're just investing now? But there are a lot of people that might have invested earlier and they have specific profits, or you might be investing over the past couple months and you've seen profits. But now if you're in the UK and you're saying, hey, wait a minute, I can't even spend my digital asset because I can't transfer it back to an exchange. Well, the exchanges are actually solving some of those problems, and they're issuing credit cards. So the credit card, although on its face might look like a power grab to take your digital assets, in fact, it's actually a positioning of these digital asset exchanges into the banking space. Because one of the things, if you look at it from all perspectives, a digital asset exchange basically is a bank for your digital assets because you put them there, you're holding them there. Some of them are paying interest on them, some aren't. Some are allowing you to borrow against them, some aren't. So there's a lot of tiptoeing in that banking space. Some of them, like Kraken in Wyoming in the U.S., actually got banking licensing, and then you just you had the new one. It starts with an A. I don't know. It just disappeared from my brain, the name of it, but they just got federal banking permissions through the OCC. So that was a big step here in the U.S. But regardless, so here you're starting to see that blend over. Now the banks, the old guard, are becoming resistant to it. So they're not necessarily trying to set up exchanges, although there's some rumblings of it. But banks traditionally move relatively slowly, and they'll expand through acquisition. Even though you have like Chase is getting actively involved. JP Morgan just bought a fintech company. I think they just spent like $100 million on some fintech company. So you're starting to see what they're going to do through acquisition, but the digital asset exchanges are already further ahead. So now you have a head-to-head battle. It's the same head-to-head battle that we're seeing with Ripple and Swift. Ripple and all the other banks that are part of the conglomerate that is Swift. So if you're fighting for cross-border remittance payments, then your battle is Swift, which has been around since 1974. Now, if your battle is as a cryptocurrency exchange is to go up against an entity like JP Morgan or HSBC or Citibank or whatever it might be, could you imagine? They've been around for eons, and now you're taking on this massive undertaking against the old guard. And the old guard are entrenched. They're entrenched financially and they're entrenched politically. So that's something that you have to really take into consideration. But this whole idea that we're seeing with the rollout of the credit cards is a circumvention of things that are like that are happening in the UK. So I don't know what the rules would be in the UK in regards to some of these exchanges launching their own credit card. So if you have access to an Uphold or I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of them. Then there's some that just have credit cards that allow you to spend your digital asset, and we keep seeing those ads popping up. But there you go. So if the bank isn't going to allow you to move your money, so what? Keep your money on the exchange. Like with Uphold, they allow you to transact in it, and you can sell it right away, or you put it into a USDC and say, okay, I'm moving $1,000 into USDC. And now that you connect that to the credit card. So now you have it in your stable coin. I don't know if there's a stable coin connected to the pound right now. I know there's a stable coin coming out soon that's going to be connected to the yen. But that is like almost like a circumvention of the banks. So the banks are trying to do everything they can to keep themselves entrenched and fight back. And we're seeing that, in different countries, these rumblings. So Bitcoin has now excelled to, I know we're going to talk about Ripple XRP, but I'm kind of on a tangent. And I wanted to give a quick shout out here. I meant to throw this up there, but big shout out to One Rough Weekend. Appreciate that. Appreciate the support. Thank you very much for that. So anyhow, so this trend and what we're seeing, like in New Zealand, there's some things going on. In India's been very resistant. We're going to cover that a little bit more in depth about the struggles that are going on with the digital asset space in India, and even some of the things that Ripple had stated. Now, why do we keep focusing on Ripple? Ripple is one of the few organizations that has put in place a real world use case that is being used in the blockchain, utilizing XRPL, trying to utilize the XRP with ODL, which is the on-demand liquidity. And we're seeing that take place over in Asia. We might not, see that to a large extent in the US. Now, Ripple did put a large stake down on MoneyGram, and in fact, MoneyGram was using ODL. They were using the on-demand liquidity. They were not using ODL for retail movement of money cross-border, but they were utilizing the ODL for foreign currency exchange, for FX. And so that is something, and what, that's something that distinguishes the XRP ledger from all the other blockchains out there, is that the XRPL has a lot of things baked into it. And one of them is a foreign currency exchange. So if you have a foreign currency exchange baked into the blockchain, it's a game changer, right? And that was the concept. Interoperability, the whole movement of developing the XRPL was for the big movement of money, for the transaction of these either big financial institutions, this intermediary interoperability solution that is connecting all of these pieces, all these dots. But yet there's always going to be a resistance to that. There's always someone that's going to say, we don't like how that's happening. Now, Bitcoin opened the door to this whole conversation. Without Bitcoin, we wouldn't be sitting here having a conversation. But we know the use case of Bitcoin right now. It's a store of value. Big institutions are leveraging and hedging their bets on Bitcoin right now as a store of value that's going to continuously increase due to due to the limited supply. And especially as you look at the debt that's rising up all over the world, they see that as a safe haven, as a safe place. Like MicroStrategy doubled down, tripled down on his investment into Bitcoin. And others have done the same thing, other corporations. Now, as they look around and they say, okay, what other projects can they invest in? Ethereum. Now, Ethereum, I just read an article. I don't know if it's true or not, but they said that based on the demand of Ethereum within the next month or two, there is the supply, the supply of Ethereum with the exchanges is going to be diminished to a point that there almost might not be any availability. I don't know if that's true, not true. I thought it was an interesting article to read, but why wouldn't that be true? If everybody is holding and the availability of the supply gets diminished, then why wouldn't we start seeing shortages? Same thing with Bitcoin. Now, the thing is, with the digital asset, unlike a currency, it's a lot easier to trade in the decimal point of that asset and see an increase in the valuation of the decimal point, not just the digital asset as a whole. So, I think that is, I think that's, a big distinction. So anyhow, I kind of got really sidetracked on all of this. And I'm just looking through, some of the comments over here. And we see Michael right here. There you go. I have my Coinbase debit card, but there you go. So you have a Coinbase debit card. So imagine HSBC today says, Michael, you can't transfer your money over to your account. And you say, hey, you know what? That's fine. You don't want me to transfer my money back into your account. I've made money in the digital asset space. It's a legit legal platform for me to trade digital assets. By the way, I have a debit card on that asset, on that exchange. I don't need to move my money back to HSBC. That's the objective. Now you cut out all of the brick and mortar, all of the fat, all of the overhead, all of the obstacles to where you have an easier flow of money, right? And so I think that's the one area, and a lot of people have talked about that, that everything has modernized except for money, the movement of money. And if you've ever done business internationally, that the flow of money is impeded due to multiple reasons. One of them is just trying to transact globally. You have to use SWIFT. It's not easy to transact globally. Number one. Number two is settlement. Settlement can take 3 to 5 days in order for you to collect on your movement of money. The process, that whole messaging process with SWIFT can take 3 to 5 days. And then you have trust issues. And then you have transparency or lack of transparency issues. So there's all these problems. And then you have all the in between, all the people that are handling the paperwork and the transaction. And there's cost involved. There's cost for every transaction. There's SWIFT cost. There's bank costs. There's foreign currency exchange costs. So now your $1,000 that you transfer is now diminished based on everybody's hands that have to touch it. And you're losing money across that entire process. Now, one of the areas when I was, doing, a ton of international transactions, one of the areas that really impeded was India. And India, not so much because they had any more difficulty than anywhere else, but they had big fluctuations in the rupee. And so when you have big fluctuations in the currency, they could go, and the cost of product could change by thousands of dollars, based on the fluctuation of their currency. And so if you want to transact in a 1 week time period from the quote to the point where we have to transact, then there's a major issue when there's a fluctuation in the currency. So there's a lot of obstacles at play. So imagine now you're able to transact in an international currency that you're allowed to hold, because there's a lot of people around the world that can't hold foreign currency. You have to hold your own currency. And so that makes it even more difficult to trade. Let me, I know I need to get into XRP, but I think this is really important. Thursday, I had a conversation with one of my customers down in Venezuela, and I was talking to her, and she, she said, "What the heck's going on up in your country? Why is your voting upside down?" And I said, "Well, it's not too different than what happened down in Venezuela." She said, "We've been watching this, and it's difficult to watch from Venezuela because we all know what they went through." That's not my point, but that's a whole different show to talk about. But it was interesting because we started talking about the valuation of currency. And if you look at the Bolivar is based, I know, Greg, sorry. The Bolivar is a currency that, that once had value, now has zero value. And down in Venezuela, they purchase now, they transact in US dollars. I don't know how they can do that because they're not allowed to hold US dollar accounts in Venezuela, but they find a way. They find a circumvention to actually spend US dollars, and it's crazy. There's just so much chaos that goes on in the world. The XRP digital asset, all of this is critical in this space in general. But all of these things that I'm talking about, guys, this is and I know Roshan, tell us about the XRP. Raj is like, come on, go straight to the point. Let's talk about this already. But the point is that all of these issues are exactly why we're seeing an expansion in the digital asset space. And it's also why Ripple and the RippleNet solution is so vital in the marketplace. So if we don't understand the problem, how can we understand what the solution is? If the SEC doesn't want to acknowledge the problem, how are they going to provide us with a solution? And so I think those are some of the major issues. So we have to look at everything. We can't just look at hey, what's going to be the value of XRP as we move forward, because you have to look at where everything is going in this space. We have to look at the development in this space. Why is it so exciting? Why is this space so important? Why is Ripple? Why do we keep talking about Ripple so much? Because it goes back to the point that what they're doing is developing an actual real world utility that's needed to a great extent. So, and Outcast is, see, Outcast right here coming in from Twitter or from Periscope. Everything seems connected in some way. Loving the stream. Exactly. Everything is connected. If it wasn't connected, what's the purpose? What's the point? But that's what we're seeing. And then we're starting to see these, impediments to it. We're seeing a lot of impediments to what's going on because the UK is trying to stop it. New Zealand's trying to stop it. The SEC is trying to really, put an impact on what's happening in this space. So let's see. So back to this article where we started before the rant, how Ripple plans to defend the SEC charges. And then we're going to get into what's going on in Asia. And then I want to talk a little bit about India because those are massive, massive markets that have to expand. But the government, the banks, they're resistant for good reason from their perspective. They don't want to be replaced. They're the old guard. So the central issue around the entire case, as we all know right now, SEC v. Ripple, is whether or not XRP is a security or not. Now, the SEC claims that that XRP at least was a security. I don't even know if they can make an argument that it's a security today, but they're trying to make the argument that 7 years ago, when Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson were first transacting in it, that they sold X amount of digital asset of XRP and that it was a security. They're also trying to allege that they sold, like $600 million worth of their own XRP holdings. So from Ripple's perspective, from Brad Garlinghouse's perspective, their claim at least is that it's not a security, that they weren't selling an unregistered security. And also they've been in this industry and selling for 7 years. Why didn't the SEC approach them 7 years ago? Why didn't the SEC approach any of the digital asset exchanges or the retail buyers and say, hey, by the way, we believe this is an unregistered security? Why did they wait 7 years till now? So we know what Ripple does. We know that Jay Clayton, who was the SEC chairman, the day before he left office, he filed this case. We know that digital asset exchanges in the US are starting to pull it down, like I said. The case keeps pushing forward, from their perspective. And, and it's going to be interesting, because as this is happening in the US, do people in other parts of the world really care that much about what's happening in the US? Is RippleNet so vital and critical in the US market? It is. It would be great, to have full access to RippleNet, full access to ODL. One of the things that we promoted a lot is that we needed regulatory clarity 2 years ago. We needed regulatory clarity 3 years ago. The Congress has tried to discuss it. They never got it past committee. So the way things work in the US is that congressional representatives, ideally bipartisan, meaning both Dem and Republican, come together and co-sponsor a bill, put it on the table. It gets looked at in Congress. It gets sent to committee. The committee can then discuss it. The committee then votes on it. It gets pushed back to the Congress, to the House, to have everybody vote on it. It gets pushed to the Senate, and then it gets signed into law by the president if he doesn't veto it. But most of the bills get stuck in committee. Very few have made it through. Very few. And some of the ones that went through are kind of, very loose in terms of maybe they set up a committee to investigate or something like that. So, Ripple, in this whole response to everything to SEC, and we haven't seen the full response yet, but they're basically stating, that the SEC's theory that XRP is an investment contract is wrong. It's not an investment contract. It doesn't meet the Howey test. And they said it amounts to an unprecedented and ill-conceived expansion of the Howey test and the SEC's enforcement authority against digital assets. That's basically what they've said up to this point. And now once they release their full statement, we're going to dig into that even more. So with that kind of a statement, the SEC is saying this, their response is it's not even close. We don't even agree. That's their perspective. That, if the SEC has come out and says that neither Bitcoin or Ethereum are securities, why would they state that XRP is a security? And we have and we've talked about all this, but there's other entities within the US government that also have stated that XRP is not a security. And then you go to Japan and Asia, and, they're not securities. So those are the things that we really have to, emphasize. That's what we're focused on. So let's go to, all right. So let's look at, what's going on over in Asia. Let me see. These are all articles. This was interesting because, what was this? Despite SEC's, this is it. Okay. So this whole thing, it's crazy because, here you have the US that is holding back, but then around the world, especially in Asia. Now, let me break down the population over in Asia, because, we look at it and we say, okay, the total population of Asia is 4.4 billion. Now, if you take India and China out of that equation, you still leave around 1.9 billion, because you have 1.2 billion people in India. These are at least a couple years ago, based on the numbers, might be 1.3 billion today. And in China, it's about equal. You have about 1.3 billion, maybe 1.4 billion. So total, you have about 2.5 billion people in India and in China together. Take those out, because we know China's not going to do it. And then we know that India has some issues right now. So it could be a massive, massive market in India, but as it stands right now, we don't see the movement. So, but then the rest of Asia still accounts for 1.9 to 2 billion people. And if you take Pakistan out of the equation, because Pakistan isn't really transacting, in the equation yet, so that's 200 million. So let's say that leaves us with 1.7 billion people in the market that could benefit from working and need cross-border remittance payments at a lower level, transacting between themselves. And so this is, a missed opportunity, because we know that we need to move money from the US. We know you can move it from Europe. We need also to understand the dynamics of the growing economies over in Asia, big economies: Malaysia, Bangladesh, Thailand, Taiwan. Obviously, we know Japan, major economy. India could be, could put everybody to shame based on the market over there. But as we're starting to see these new developing markets, regardless of what the SEC is doing, we see Ripple developing new partnerships. And this is one that I pulled up. They had new partnerships in Malaysia, in Bangladesh, in Japan, everything for cross-border payments between the countries. So they want to seamlessly transact between the different Asian countries, because you still have to, it's still considered remittance payments. It's still considered cross-border payments. These are sovereign nations. They all have their own currencies. You still need to connect the dots. They're all trading amongst themselves. And so that is, that's key. Singapore, there you go, is another one, Singapore. Korea, there you go. Yeah, Singapore, Korea. I mean, it's amazing to understand the dynamics of what should happen, what can happen, and everything else. Here's an interesting statement. Ripple and SEC are in bed together. They're just having marital issues. Possibly, maybe they are. I mean, when we look at the overall significance, importance of what they're doing, why would a government say, we don't want any part of it? Rich, the Philippines. Oops, I don't know where it went. The Philippines. There you go. We got Ahmed that came in from Bahrain. What's going on? Good to have you on today. So, so there's just so much going on. And as XRP Tiny here is saying, the banksters are going to hate regardless, because that's the old guard. That's the resistant aspect of the financial space. Although RippleNet could be amazing for them. That was the idea, is between these financial institutions, the remittance payments, the whole concept is that RippleNet gets baked into the banks. But Swift is going to fight back. It's Swift that also has the largest lobbyist entity within their banking conglomerate. So think about, Swift has been around since ~74. They're not just going to take a back seat, regardless of what the banks want to do. And banks have begun to work with RippleNet, but they've worked with just one aspect of it. If we break down what RippleNet used to be, they used to have XCurrent, which is their messaging platform. Now it's all just baked together. And ODL, it was is their on-demand liquidity. So yeah, the XCurrent. What was I don't know why my brain just isn't functioning right now. But anyhow, so someone will know. Pop up. There were the three primary categories of RippleNet. X Rapid. There you go. Thank you, Viv. So X Rapid and X Via. Right. Don't know why I couldn't remember. I was X Rapid. So X Rapid is ODL. That's the game-changing solution of the RippleNet platform in general. That's what's so critical. You have to have that. Otherwise, the X Current aspect was just a messaging platform, which did it better than Swift, gave them competition. But then you might get 25% of the customers and you'll be happy. You're making a ton of money because you got 25% of the clients from Swift. But so what? How is that a game changer? All that is competition. The ODL is the game changer, which streamlined everything. It changed the cost, the transparency, the speed, everything. It changed everything. So let me throw this up here. Shout out to DJ Jarvis. What is going on? His comment here. U.S. will lose power without SWIFT being leader of cross-border payment, i.e. sanctions on other countries, being able to monitor other countries' transactions like Russia. That's a problem. Agree, 100%. And it's not just the U.S. because the U.S. isn't the only one that has that kind of influence over SWIFT. You have multiple countries that have influence over SWIFT. And so you're right. There has to be a mechanism in place. And if RippleNet is going to replace Swift, then RippleNet needs to play ball. They have to be part of the global equation. They can't be contrary to the governments. So if the U.S. government, if they're contrary to the U.S. government, they're done. They're going to shut them down and they're finished. If they're going to be contrary to any of the governments in Europe, they're going to shut up. They're going to shut them down because Swift has understood they're a group of banks basically, and they've held on to their power as part of the old guard. They're all interconnected. The government, the banks, the money flow, all interconnected. So if they get to a point, where they're putting sanctions on a country, you brought up Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, Syria. The list goes on. I mean, you can think of all the different countries that have had sanctions put on them over the years. Iran is probably one of the more, recent. And now we see some companies within Russia, not Russia as an entirety. Now we see some issue like with China with some of their companies, but Iran was really one of the bigger ones because basically sanctions on the whole country. And they basically said, nope, Swift, you are no longer going to be working with Iranian banks and you're not going to transact their money flow to any other banks. You're shutting it down. So you're right, 100%, from that perspective, DJ, is that, yes, they need to have that element baked into it. Now, RippleNet can do it because it's a company that you can turn to. They can go to a Ripple and say, look, you guys need to put this in there that when we decide that we're putting sanctions on a country, the Sudan also had sanctions on it, correct, Zhang? So if you want to decide you put sanctions on this country, then you need to cut off the flow. You can't allow it anymore. But that's the thing, is that it's the RippleNet solution is not decentralized. The RippleNet solution is controlled by Ripple, so they can put influence on them. The XRP ledger, if there's other private entities out there that believe in complete privacy and they're going to do it on the side and they're going to create an arrangement on their own, then they're going to be outlawed by the governments if they allow banks to move money. Now, the banks probably won't engage with them. There'll be more, maybe the governments will engage with them. We've already seen that type of an attempt of the circumvention of sanctions like that, because we've seen what happened in Venezuela. They had the petro and nobody really accepted it. They tried to influence India and said, hey, when you buy gas from us, you're going to use the petro. And they said, no, I don't think we're going to do it that way. And they didn't do it that way. Same thing with Iran. They wanted to move money around. They had to move fiat currency in big bundles. That's how they got money. Or, they try to create their own digital asset and try to circumvent. They try to do things, on a Russian exchange that might not be as accepted, and so it has to route in multiple different ways. But then when you route, then the world body, the world, governments look back and say, well, look, we're sanctioning Iran, but Russia, you're still transacting with them. We're not so happy about that. And so it's very obvious, very transparent. But I think that that's definitely part of that bigger equation, that we have to definitely look at. So let's see. XRP Tiny here says the government is not to be trusted. We have seen what they did in Venezuela. You see that. You definitely see, what could happen, and what does happen. I mean, it's amazing. Let's see. I like this. Dirk, I wouldn't stress too much just yet. SEC purely wants Ripple to admit that they treated XRP as a security. Ripple just needs to clarify that even if that was the case, as of now, XRP is a currency. I like that statement. I agree with Dirk. I also believe that there's going to be, and I could be completely wrong. I can be completely off base, but I believe there's going to be a settlement. The reason why there's going to be a settlement, I believe, is that exactly what Dirk just said, that in the beginning, maybe it was a security. It very well could have been. They were selling it off to raise money back in 2013. Today, it's decentralized. It's 100% a currency. Even though the way it's transacted, it's a currency. So, and it's no different than Ethereum. Ethereum, they said in the early years, may well have been a security. That's what the SEC said. When the beginning stages of Ethereum, when they were developing and selling off Ethereum, it could have been a security. But then as you move forward, it's no longer a security. So why would they apply different rules to XRP than they would Ethereum? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So that's where, this whole thing just, it makes it very difficult to comprehend because of the same purpose is that the UK deemed it not a security and Japan has deemed it not a security. So let's see, Decadent Dro. I have had investments over 10 years old that I've dumped thousands into that never went anywhere, but some have. It's all about taking chances. Yeah, that's it. That's the thing. From day one, anybody getting into this digital asset space understands that it's speculative in nature. And that's it, right? We know that it's a speculative investment. Now you look at Christine Lagarde, IMF. I know DNI, you're already on, so I didn't have to put up the IMF bat signal. But Christine Lagarde came out recently against Bitcoin. Why is everybody ganging up on Bitcoin all of a sudden now that it hit 40,000? They're all seeing, that there could be a little bit of competition with their own investable assets or their bonds or their own fiat currencies. People are moving out of fiat into Bitcoin, moving out of gold into Bitcoin, pulling stocks out of bonds and putting into Bitcoin. They're putting a percentage of their investables into Bitcoin. So we look at it from that perspective. But Christine Lagarde came out and said, oh, by the way, Bitcoin is speculative and it's still being used for illegal purposes. I agree and disagree in what her statements are, because they always tend to fall back on that digital assets are utilized for nefarious purpose. Now, in a nefarious purpose arrangement, why would they want to leave a breadcrumb trail of the transaction? That makes no sense. So when you get your fiat currency and you exchange your fiat currency in that nefarious purpose transaction, whatever they do, it's untraceable at that point. It's done, right? I mean, there's probably ways they can figure out how to trace it. They do, they can. Digital assets, you do the transaction. Oh, let's look on the ledger. Oh, look, we just saw $1 million move over here. Oh, by the way, we figured out what your Bitcoin address was, because we keep seeing over and over and over and over again. And they have other evidence, not just the money trail. They have other evidence, but now they connect the money trail once they get it. Why would they do that? It doesn't make any sense. So from Christine Lagarde's perspective and anyone else's perspective, as they gang up on the digital asset crypto space, you would want that. From a government perspective, why wouldn't you want to be able to track the movement monetary movement by your citizens. From an individual's perspective, you don't want the government watching anything, right? You want privacy. You don't want them being able to observe. From the government's perspective, hey, if you want to transact on the blockchain, we're able to track the blockchain. So it's very contradictory, you know. So then you have Lydian over here. Government's considerations are terrorism, money laundering, etc. Exactly. By any means, they will find a way to control the DeFi system, XRP security, or not. A discussion is just to legitimize their intention, and that's a big one. But now think about this: they just came after. So here's these big conversations. We've seen over the past year in 2020 billions of dollars in fines paid by the old guard, by banks, for corruption, for illegal activity, for a whole host of things, all of them. JP Morgan, HSBC, Deutsche Bank, all of the Citi, all of them got caught up. And now we just saw Capital One just got smacked because of their AML. They weren't abiding by their anti-money laundering statements properly, and they just got whacked with a huge fine. So they can gang up and focus on the digital asset space and Bitcoin all they want, whereas the old guard, what do? They pay fines. So it's a matter of the old guard continuing to want to move in the direction they're moving in with little competition, or buying themselves time, delaying. This goes back to the beginning of the conversation. We didn't even get into what I wanted to talk about today. I can't believe this, Chip. I got sidetracked. But the old guard is delaying the inevitable. Why? Because of what we talked about in the beginning. You have the cryptocurrency exchanges that can get into banking, whereas the banks are finding it very difficult to get into the crypto space, and the crypto market are getting banking licensing faster than the old guard can get into the crypto space, even though they can do it. So this is the conflict. So do they want to delay the inevitable and try to push this out as far as possible until the banks are ready to take over and move into the crypto space? I don't know. I mean, I think that's definitely a possibility. Yeah, me sidetrack, never. Let's see, XRP Tiny again. The SEC is using an XRP monitor node. Nobody understands what they're doing. Nobody. I don't know. Yeah, why are they using the node exactly? What are they doing? Why are they using it? They've been in it, and they set it up a while ago. So there you go. And I like so this is all part of it. Banks can participate by running nodes on different networks. They can, and they do, yeah, and they're moving in that direction. The whole thing is crazy. So let's see, play dirty here. How come the SEC didn't put XRP deemed a security in the prayer request of the lawsuit versus Ripple? Yeah, so we're going to dig into that tomorrow night. We're going to get into the legal aspect of it more when we have John Deaton on. He's the attorney that's suing the SEC. So definitely tune in tomorrow night. That's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know for a lot of you guys in other parts of the world, it's hard to get onto our evening show. But if you can make it tomorrow night, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that one's going to be a really, really good one. But let me try to fly through this in the minutes that we have. We talked a little bit about the Ripple global expansion continuing. We talked about Malaysia. We talked about Japan. We talked about Singapore. All of these different countries that they're pushing forward in. And here it says in Europe, Ripple's looking to hire a managing director for RippleNet Europe. You have sales and also a sales development representative for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And they're going to be working out of London. Now, this was back in December. So a few weeks ago, they opened up these positions. Now, there's other payment startups that are kind of working within the Ripple space. There's a lot going on internationally, whether it's going to be Latin America, Asia. But right now, Asia is the big focal point. And so let's see this. And if we just look back, like, in history, you don't have to go back that many years. You go back to like 2019, and you see that you have big backing from SBI and Santander as they were pushing for the expansion in the Asian market. The difference between the Asian market and the US market is that 2 years fast forward, the Asian market is still building in this direction. 2 years fast forward from 19, the US is trying to find roadblocks to stop it. 4 years ago, 2017, Ripple launched an office in Mumbai in order to really help boost the productivity there in India's digital economy. And they were creating at that time, the beginning stages of the framework. And then 2020 here, June of last year, Ripple is still focused on working within India to help create the framework for the digital asset space over in India. So for a couple years, so from 2017, so for 3 years, you saw Ripple actively involved in India trying to build out the space, whereas the government of India and the central bank in India was actually for a couple years blocked the crypto space in India. They said, we like blockchain, we don't like crypto. That was problematic. Now, if you think about the possibilities of what could happen again in Asia, forget about, the US is an important aspect of everything. The SEC does create and provide that clarity, the normalcy, within the financial space. The US and Europe have dictated much of what happens in the global financial space. That's the old guard. The new guard is anywhere it is. And to me, that's very, very meaningful. So here, even now, though, you have the impact of what this lawsuit in the US. So you have the SEC v. Ripple, and even in India, they're concerned. So there's this article that was on Hindustan Times that, the title here is Ripple lawsuit worries the Indian exchanges. Now they were shut down, then they reopened. There's been a little tension there. We could get into the whole conflict within, the financial markets in India and why there's tension there on a different show. But here, XRP, let's see, market cap as they were writing this was like 16 billion. I don't know if that's not super relevant, but but the key is, what is, the impact from this case. So this case, the SEC case, is going to impact and making exchanges over in India nervous. But yet, if India, do they follow what the SEC does, or do they take that as kind of a case precedent, to say, okay, this is what happened in the US, this is what we're going to do now in India because of that. And they're going to take that, as a fact. It's amazing that, so the impact could be very, very destabilizing. Back in September, Brad Garlinghouse actually criticized India's crypto ban, right? So there was more conversation within the government, even in September of this past year, that they were looking to ban cryptocurrency again. So it's crazy. So here it says, according to a September 15th report from Bloomberg, the Indian federal cabinet is considering a law banning crypto 6 months after the courts lifted the blanket ban. So they just lifted it, create some normalcy, allow it to build again, and then they want to crush it again. I mean, it's 100% about the control dynamic. And this is country to country. So the US, India, I mean, it's no different. The impact, though, when we look at it, we have all these other countries. That's why I removed in the beginning, I want to take India out of the equation, but 1.2 billion people in India, but that still left us with like 1.7 to 1.9 billion people in Asia that do want to transact, that we're seeing the movement in all those other countries, in Malaysia, in Thailand, in Singapore, in Japan, in the Philippines, in all these other countries. You're seeing the embracing of the digital asset space, and they understand the importance and significance of it. And the governments are more open to it. Japan may be leading the charge over there. We see China coming in with their digital yuan, also with their Belt and Road Initiative, also trying to impact that regional the regional flow of money, utilizing the digital yuan. So there's a power struggle going on, and we could talk about that at the economic power struggles that are going on in Asia, the economic growth powerhouse that's getting ready to develop over in the Middle East, and what could happen in Latin America. I mean, all of them, and the crypto space in general has a lot to do with what we're going to see moving forward over the next couple of years. So just want to give a shout out to everyone here. You guys are awesome joining us here on an early Saturday morning. At one point, I think we had close to 800 people on this morning. You guys are awesome from all over the world. Appreciate all of you guys. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow night's Sunday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also stay tuned. Chip and I are going to be rolling out the way that you guys can register to participate in our January 31st virtual meetup that we're going to be doing. And Crypto Eddie is going to be one of our guests there. I believe we're going to have BitTrue representatives there and maybe a few other people that'll be guests. But the key with our meetup is that you guys will be able to commingle and hang out in small groups. Every table, every virtual table, we can have from 6 to 12 people. So it's like small groups. You guys get to hang out and talk. So stay tuned for that one. That's going to be outstanding. We're really looking forward to getting that set up. And in the meantime, I think that's it. I got to get out of here. You guys are awesome. We'll see you guys tomorrow night with John Deaton. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifier to get notified every time we stream live. And we'll check you guys out tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the round table to talk more about the SEC lawsuit against Ripple. I'm out.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.